So, I've criticized Zenless a lot lately, but I truly believe that Belle and Wise are good protagonists. Yes, these goofy goobers are my goats. Belle and Wise are unique in the way that they're written into the world. They are directly tied to one of the biggest disasters in history and have abilities that nobody else has so far. Instead of talking about what doesn't work about Belle and Wise, I'll start with what does work. So what I appreciate about Phaethon is that they have an internal motivation. Storytelling is very difficult when you have a character that doesn't have a motivation. Now, there's a difference between a goal and a motivation. A goal is something that you want to accomplish, but a motivation is the why you want to do something. It's something that drives a character to make, or in some situations, not make a decision. Saving the world or stopping a bad guy is a goal. The why would be protecting your community or revenge. Belle and Wise are doing this to find the truth and clear their teacher's name. It's a strong personal motivation, and when the game focuses on it, we get some really good moments. One of my favorite moments with Belle and Wise is when they visit the memorial site.
And on the right side of the road were all the dessert shops and snack stores that Belle loved. I couldn't resist Belle's whining and ended up buying more treats than she could ever finish.
I couldn't finish them? As soon as any snacks were placed on the table, everyone would grab them up within a minute. Or have you forgotten?
I love how they take the time to have the siblings reminisce about their past. The stores they visited, the snacks they shared together. Usually we see Phaethon as competent and confident. They're busy taking care of business, guiding agents through hollows, and running their video store. Up until this point, they were also cagey about their backstory. It wasn't something that they openly shared. It was a secret that they kept to themselves. But this was the first moment we got to see them be vulnerable. Even Fairy, who is usually sarcastic, treats this moment seriously. It's a good scene that gave them an emotional core and developed them more as characters. This scene was so good that I wish we got more moments like it. Finding the truth isn't their only motivation. Characters are allowed to have multiple motivations. A line that stuck with me in 2.3 was when the proxy was trying to free the people from drowned ideals.
I'm a mystic, and I'm a proxy. My only goal is to bring every lost person back home.
This line was a good moment of characterization because it shows how Belle and Wise view themselves. It's their job to help guide people that are lost. Being a proxy is not a job that they do just to get paid, it's something that's fulfilling, it gives them purpose. They have pride in their work. Throughout the game, we see how useful proxy work is when helping agents, both literally and metaphorically. Phaethon helps guide others through hollows, but they also are somebody that the agents can rely on and help them during emotional lows. We saw how Phaethon played key roles when helping Miyabi, Shenlong, and Trigger. To a lesser extent, we could even see how they are somebody that Lucia and Orphe could confide in. The actual prose and execution of these scenes are a different problem, but the idea of the proxy being a good friend that people could rely on works. This is honestly what makes Belle and Wise a good protagonist in the context of Zenless' world. They're the most skilled at being guides, but they're also good at building bonds with others. One of Zenless' core themes is about humanity's ability to keep fighting in hopeless situations. Having hope is easier when you aren't fighting alone. As we saw in 1.4, Belle and Wise were that connective tissue that brought all these other factions together to fight against Bringer. While I wish that the other agents had a bigger role when fighting against Bringer, this is the general idea that I'm looking for. To be fair, Season 2 did something similar, but the execution didn't land because of how disjointed Season 2 felt. Having a personal motivation means that there are more interesting ways to introduce conflict into a story. Conflict is something that makes a story interesting. A story cannot move without it. By having a personal motivation, the stakes are more personal, and that makes the story more interesting. Let's go back to Zhu Yuan's interlude quest. There was a scene where Belle and Wise were hesitant to help. I like this moment of hesitation, even if it was brief. From their perspective, helping would mean getting caught and risk their entire mission. There's a clear conflict in doing what's right, in doing what will keep them safe. A writer could introduce a character that challenges a protagonist's worldview. When done right, a protagonist is given more depth and the story becomes more meaningful. This is why I like how their quest to find the truth is getting more and more dangerous, but the siblings are so headstrong that they continue to put themselves in harm's way if it means clearing their teacher's name. The proxy went from staying safe behind a screen to going into the hollows personally and now experiencing eye problems from their implants. But Zenless raises the stakes even higher because the mission isn't just putting their lives in danger, but also the lives of their friends. This is why my favorite moment from Season 2 was when the proxy turned into an ethereal. Their personal mission nearly got Billy, Cecilia, and Promia killed. That's good stakes. It shows that there's a flaw in the protagonist. The more they dig for the truth, the more they put themselves and their friends in danger. There's a scene in 2.1 where Trigger clearly tells the proxy that she's worried about their safety. One of the responses from the proxy is that this is the price of finding the truth. I wish that this was voiced because people most likely forgot or they skipped through it, but it's a good line. There are multiple times where there are warnings that the people around the proxy tell them to be careful, but their motivation compels them to ignore it. So there's a recklessness to the siblings' character that works when done properly. And I think I figured out why Season 2 annoyed me so much with how much Belle and Wise needed to be saved. When they got into danger, it was done lazily. The proxy was just being dumb or not being aware of their surroundings. I would have less problems with these scenes if the reason that they got into these situations was because the proxy saw an opportunity to get closer to the truth and chose to take a risk. At least then the recklessness was motivated by an interesting character flaw and not because they didn't see a giant ethereal behind them. Hey, so Editor Caffeine here. I wanted to add something because I'm wrong. 2.5 did exactly what I asked. The proxy goes and sees the miasma ghost of Carol Arna and goes into the next room to find more information, and that's when they get jumped by the ethereal. I think my problem with how Hoyoverse is handling some of the proxy scenes is that some of the most important dialogue for the proxy is in unvoiced sections for whatever reason. I really think that 2.5's pacing ruined a lot of the good parts of the story. I just wanted to add that because I'm wrong, and I'm mad enough to admit when I make a mistake. Alright, back to the video. Belle and Wise have the makings of a good protagonist when Zenless actually focuses on them. So let's be a little bit more constructive and talk about how Zenless could make Belle and Wise better. Obviously, there are a few things that Zenless could do better to make Belle and Wise even better as protagonists. Like I said earlier, the story of Zenless Zone Zero is humanity's ability to fight in a hopeless situation. There's a reason that when the Void Hunters first fought back against the Hollows, it was seen as a miracle. As protagonists, Belle and Wise should be there to embody and reinforce this belief. I mentioned in Season 1 that they did a pretty good job at showing this, but I think we could get more out of it. For example, Zenless could include an antagonist that challenges the idea of hope. The Exaltists were supposed to do that. The Exaltists are the antithesis of fighting against the Hollows. They represent the idea that fighting against the Hollows is pointless and that the best point of survival is to embrace them. The key figures that the creator corrupted were Bringer, Isolde, and Sarah. These three are all characters that fight against the Hollows to keep hope alive. Bringer being in PubSec, Isolde in the Defense Force, and Sarah in Hand. Thematically, it's terrifying that the creator is capable of turning heroes and public servants into cultists. The problem is that they were not given enough time to really challenge the core theme of the game. It could have been more interesting to see Bringer and Sarah try to convince others that their ideology is correct. Then the proxy and agent of the month can fight that verbally. One of the problems that holds them back is that their dialogue is done poorly. My issue with a lot of Phaethon's dialogue is that they spend a lot of time spouting exposition to further the plot. Most of the time, they just recap what they just learned, and that's a good way of making dialogue boring. That kind of dialogue is just one-dimensional, and usually good, efficient dialogue is able to do multiple things all at once. Things like raise drama, show character, and enhance the theme. Here's the thing, I know they can do it because they have. In 2.5, they introduced Lockspring. There was an exchange that I actually liked.
And just what is it that you want to protect, Lockspring? Is it merely the concept of humanity? You said people are obsessed with the game of sacrificing others to elevate themselves. But how is what you're doing any different? You've chosen to sacrifice everyone's lives and free will in exchange for the protection and peace you think the creator offers.
When I say I want the proxy to embody Zenless' theme, this is what I mean. Now, this was a scene that was near the end of a 6-hour long quest, so I don't blame people for not remembering or not caring about this moment. A character like Lockspring should have been shown consistently throughout Season 2, so they could have fleshed out his beliefs and see how he challenges the proxy. Another way of introducing internal conflict is by having Phaethon come to terms that Carol Arna was not completely innocent. By making Carol Arna morally gray, it forces them to question what they already believe. Having a character realize that the person they put on a pedestal wasn't perfect is a compelling character arc. For me, it shows that Belle and Wise are maturing and acknowledging who their teacher actually was and not the version they remember as a child. In my opinion, that's a universal experience. We all have parental figures or mentors that we looked up to, but when we grew up, we see their faults. It's all part of growing up. I hope they do this, but I really doubt it because it does feel like Hoyoverse likes to make their characters more black and white. Now obviously this is a gacha game and the focus is not only on the proxy. Gacha games are going to have an ensemble cast and that's honestly fine. I want other characters to share the spotlight. Again, Zenless has done this in the past. 1.4 was a pretty good job at balancing both Miyabi and the proxy's story. Phaethon was able to assist Miyabi without taking all the spotlight from her. They each had their own moments where they shined. I couldn't find a way to talk about it earlier, but it is important to talk about. In shonen, and especially in gacha games, people want a protagonist with aura. Some people want it so much that if they don't, the protagonist gets slandered. Belle and Wise stand out from other gacha protagonists because their biggest strength isn't their special anime powers, it's their intelligence. When I think about my favorite moment with Phaethon, it's usually when they find some way to think outside the box. The time they hacked into a train to beat the dead-end butcher, when they hacked the platform to help Jiyuan and Qingyi escape, or when they knew to throw the music into the fissure to lure the ballet twins away. Cool anime fight sequences are hype for a reason, but I appreciate when a character has to be strategic because that's something we don't usually get from a gacha protagonist. In the epilogue, the proxy hacks into everybody's device to help lead them outside the hollow. I want more of that. My hope for season 3 is that the writers don't forget how intelligent Belle and Wise are. Despite all of its flaws, Zenless has the right pieces for a strong protagonist. To recap, what works about Belle and Wise is that they have a personal motivation, and that motivation can be used to introduce interesting conflicts. These conflicts would force Belle and Wise to act and further their character development, and that development is what leads to an emotional journey and arc. If Hoyoverse can accomplish this, then Zenless' story would be in the right direction. I'll see you guys next time. It might be a week, it might be a year.